Welcome back to Maximum News. My name is Max Derrat.
I'm Sybsidian.
And in case you can't tell by Syb's voice and maybe my voice, yeah, we didn't record last week because both of us weren't feeling particularly well. So we just had to call it, which is too bad because there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened last week. You know, there was the guy, the CEO of Unity, you know, the guy who suggested charging people every time they reload a weapon, a microtransaction, and when they're playing a shooter game, well, he's gone. So that's another win for the consumers, at least in that regard. And there were a couple other things like Gollum. The people behind that terrible Gollum game that came out put out an apology that was apparently AI generated. So they put about as much effort into that as they did into the rest of the game. Yeah, a bunch of stuff that was worth talking about, but yeah, it's just one of those weeks, guys. But not to worry, we have a whole bunch of stuff that we got to talk about this week in regards to gaming news. Probably the first piece of news that we got on the docket today is probably the end to one of the biggest pieces of ongoing gaming news that has happened and probably will ever happen in the history of the medium. So I don't know if you remember how long ago it was that Microsoft announced that they were going to be buying Activision Blizzard King. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, that was the kind of at the peak of their whole insanity of all of the things happening all at once and coming out and all that stuff that Blizzard and Activision and King, and it's just a giant frat house of stupidity and all that stuff. And Microsoft said, we're going to reevaluate our relationship with Activision Blizzard King.
And by reevaluate, we're going to go full Elon Musk and buy him out and try to fix it that way. Yeah, but for a whole lot more money. Gosh, and I forgot, like, when those initial stories about how Kotick and like the whole executive team over at Activision Blizzard King was messing up when it came to the treatment of their employees, especially their female employees. That was 2 years ago. Yep. 2 years ago. I felt like we were talking about it yesterday. But then in January of the following year of 2022, Microsoft announced their intentions to buy Activision Blizzard King for $69 billion. Nice. And it's taken them a year and 8 months in order to get the deal finalized. And it's kind of been an ongoing joke amongst people in the gaming community. Like, okay, we've been hearing about this for, seems like an eternity. When are they going to actually finalize a deal, and what exactly has been holding it up? Well, a bunch of things, and understandably so, because, you know, when like a huge company like Microsoft buys out another company like Activision Blizzard King, there could be certain reasonable concerns regarding whether or not that sort of acquisition could be anti-competitive, could be bad for business, smaller businesses. And for the most part, over that roughly 2 year period, Microsoft was able to assuage the fears of certain regulation boards like the FTC in the US and a couple other ones which I can't recall off the top of my head. However, the one that was holding up the deal from happening primarily was this organization over in the UK called the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA. They tried to block the whole deal between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard back then because they were primarily concerned about how Microsoft acquiring Call of Duty and the fact that Microsoft, according to them, cornered 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market could drastically change things for the worse in the coming decades, because it seems like, well, they seem to think, and people in the industry seem to think, that cloud gaming is where things are going to be at in the next 10 to 20 years. So if Microsoft owns the vast majority of that market and they have Call of Duty, they could become the god emperor of game companies, right? Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft promised to them, no, don't worry. And to Jim Ryan's belief, I mean, like he seemed to be on top of a chair with a rope around his neck when this was all going on. Now, they promised that they were going to release COD on all platforms for the subsequent 10 years without any problems. But apparently that wasn't enough to convince them. They're like, no, cloud gaming's where it's at, and we're still not comfortable with Microsoft owning, you know, that much power. Well, because of that, back in April, the deal was held up, and we've been waiting ever since for Microsoft to offer a deal or offer up something to the CMA that can convince them, yeah, okay, this is okay for business. You can go ahead. And what they actually ended up doing, they submitted a proposal back in August, and it took until 3 days ago, I think October 12th, October 13th, for them to approve. And what they did was allow, let me see here. It's sort of hard to explain. Microsoft basically proposed a new deal that involved Ubisoft, Ubisoft, PlayStation, and Nintendo, allowing them to use their cloud streaming services to stream the Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King games on those devices. So it's not that anti-competitive, right?
Yeah.
So now, because that has all been taken care of, the CMA approved it. The deal is officially done. On October 13th, it was announced, excuse me, that the deal is over. Microsoft officially owns Activision Blizzard King. It is now done. They now officially own Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, which better mean we're getting a Spyro 4 now, Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, and Overwatch. Those are all the games specifically from ABK, but alongside that, they have all the major Microsoft franchises like Minecraft, Sea of Thieves, and of course all the Bethesda franchises like Elder Scrolls, Starfield, yada yada yada. Yeah. So it's finally done. Syb, we can breathe a sigh of relief. Now we can look forward to not seeing this on the front page of gaming news websites every day for the next whatever. Yeah. So thoughts?
Been the past 2 years. It's been will it, won't it? And I said right from the get go, day one, I was always like, yes, this is going to happen. There's no way this is not happening. All of the people that had stock, almost all the people who had stock in Blizzard wanted this to happen because Blizzard had been going down. This saved them. It really did. This saved them. The very, very lucky Diablo 4 release date saved them considerably. If Diablo 4 had come out in the middle of all this other stuff kind of dropping, and if people had realized how bad Diablo 4 was, not in its initial story. The initial playthrough is quite fun for most people. Most people give it a fairly healthy review. But the fact that nobody is playing this game right now is very shocking, right? It went down to some pretty abysmal numbers. Now that was after one of their major nerf bat things that I don't know why developers are still clueless when it comes to nerfing and buffs and stuff like that. You never nerf anything entirely, because if you do, you just ruin most everybody's state of game. If you made something so overpowered, you're an idiot. I don't when you see something that happens where it's hey, this ability has been nerfed by 5,000%. Or sorry, 500%. I've legitimately seen 200 and 500% nerfs coming from certain aspects of the ABK before, and it's all right, if you got a product, if you got a ability or a class or something like that needed to be nerfed by 500%. You just don't know what you're doing, and that's not my take on it. This is from people like Asmongold and others who have been in the industry for so long. But I can confirm, only an idiot releases a product, and then has to nerf it by 500%. You just had no clue what you were doing. You didn't know how to balance test. You didn't have the ability to do basic math. And then you don't know how to nerf something. It's when you're nerfing stuff, you just don't take a sledgehammer to something that people are playing, because that just infuriates those people. There's been many games that me and a ton of other people have played in the past where a nerf bat comes out completely. Not only does it there's an ability or something that makes it slightly like, better than average, but then they take a hammer to it to the point where it's no longer playable at all, and you have to just restart all of your progress from scratch on a new thing. The minute that happens, most people just walk away from the game because it's like, well, you just told me that none of my time was valuable to you, none of my experiences, none of my like preferred gameplay. And it's not to say that we want something that's broken. It's just that's just how it functions. So things like that, the way that they've handled this kind of stuff, the way that they've handled, and this is the biggest one here. All of their esports is coming crashing down around them. If the investors had to sit back and listen to how the Overwatch League is dead, the Hearthstone, everything with Hearthstone is dead, the Heroes of the Storm is not getting any big events, period. If you had to listen to that as an investor, you would be rioting right now if Microsoft hadn't walked in and guaranteed a very high price for your stocks. Not the highest that it could have been, obviously, but I like this. It's just shocking that at how lucky they got and how narrowly they've missed like multiple like just shattering things that would have doomed almost any other company. But Bobby is like, this is Bobby's world. We're just living in it, and he is one of the luckiest SOBs I have ever seen in any kind of a thing. Like, I mean, for a guy whose name was inside a certain black book by a certain fellow, that doesn't mean that he was partaking in any of that stuff. I want to make that clear. I've always alluded to the fact that certain fellow who had that little black book of names, he was always lining up targets. It's essentially, he was always trying to schmooze with people. So not everybody in his book, very importantly to know.
It's very important to know that particular individual probably didn't self-expire, if you get my drift.
Yeah. But just overall, does that mean I'm defending Kotick? No, I'm not defending Kotick. He is the luckiest SOB ever that in big corporate financing in any way, shape, or form. Like, he's the luckiest CEO because, again, if any of this stuff had happened to any other company, it would have destroyed them. It would have sank them. The guy from EA who was running Unity got less. Like, he was gone in what, a month? A month he was less than a month he was gone. He's out on his butt, and he didn't even get like a golden parachute. He's just out. And meanwhile, you had almost a year and a half, 2 years straight of every single day it was resetting the clock for the next like major, awful news story that just like was 100% just like shattering. Like, oh my goodness, what in the world is going on here? But the problem is that he always had a lock on that. He always had this vice grip on ABK. We were never going to get it. The only way that we were going to free any of those companies, any of those IPs, and that's really what we're looking at, is the IPs that have been freed now. But all of them, the only way that we would have gotten any of them out is if a big company like Microsoft walked in, bought them out, and then kindly showed him the door in 3 months. Right. That is the only way we were going to be free of this. And a lot of people are like, oh no, he's going to go work for another division in Microsoft. No. If he does, he's the most luckiest. I mean, it's at that point, that might be proof for simulation theory, and we're actually we're just NPCs in Bobby's world. Right. Like, there's just, it's like he's using cheat codes if that happens, but I don't think it will. I think they'll show him the door, and I think no. Him, like,
it's pretty much confirmed that he's got.
Oh like, no, he's going, but whether he's gonna like pop up in another wing of Microsoft, right? That's what people are thinking, right? Like, he's gonna become the head for the meta development of Microsoft and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, please no, please.
That would not be good PR, and I don't. Given the way that Activision Blizzard King is at the moment, under Bobby Kotick's quote-unquote leadership, I fail to see what pivotal role he would have aside from, I don't know, maybe just keeping the investors happy, because the investors like Bobby Kotick. Everybody else hates him. I mean,
Not really. Like a lot of the investors didn't like Bobby.
well, enough that they're
They
willing
never
to.
had enough. Yeah, well, they tried to vote him out a couple of times, and they got close on. I think once it came down to 1%. So it's not. He's not a well liked individual by the he barely held on to that before in the past.
Right. And was that when all the stuff was happening?
No, that was before.
Oh,
That was
really?
before. Yeah, he shut down. He shut down like the votes on getting him out. He finagled it so that the votes didn't come up whilst this buyout thing was going on. So yeah, he basically, I think the day that the second lawsuit was announced and like some of the stuff started to come out, that's at that moment was when people were like, yeah, this is like not good.
Gotcha.
Clearly time to go.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm pretty confident then that when January 1st rolls around, that he's probably not going to stick around in any capacity, because they don't want any more bad PR than Activision Blizzard has already had. When January 1st rolls around, Microsoft wants at least the appearances to be that everything is just going up from rock bottom, because when it comes to stuff like Overwatch and the miserable state that's in right now, it can only go up from that. And by the way, just in case anybody's wondering, well, wait, Bobby Kotick didn't say he's leaving. No, well, he made an official statement saying that he's going to stick around during the transfer until the end of the year. And people are like, well, that didn't mean that he's not going to be around in 2024. Well, he's just saying that for PR reasons. And, people like Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg have said, no, he's gone January 1st. So that's done. So, I suppose this is, we have to take this as a win. Whether or not that win will translate into anything positive, we'll have to see. I mean, like, it can't get any worse, right, Si?
Well, we hope not.
Right.
I mean, we've now there has been some slip ups.
Sorry to interrupt you, but my argument is like, look, why is it that games under Activision Blizzard have been in such a dire state? Well, it's just because a lot of the people that are working on them have just been waiting for the transition to be made. And then they get back to doing substantial work on the stuff, right? Now they can do that.
Yeah. Well, it was for the past like I think, what is it, like 6-7 years now? And Bobby put in this concept, this very hard concept, very very strong thing, a way of building and bringing content out, and that was to focus on MVP. And we've talked about MVP, and you're like, oh, they're valuing us, most valuable person. No. It's minimal viable product.
Right.
That's what they were doing. That's why everything came out and it was looking like, well, garbage, or it was just not flowing at all. It was just not good. All of that kind of stuff, all of it was and is a product of Bobby and the board. And if they're smart, they'll get rid of all of them. Absolutely everybody. I don't know if Mike Ybarra needs to go. At least he plays the game. At least he's somewhat familiar with the game. He's been trying to encourage some good, positive stuff. We've got Chris Metzen coming back as the head of all things Warcraft. That means that when they said all things Warcraft, they meant not just World of Warcraft, but Warcraft entirely. And that's exciting because there is a big push to bring back RTS games. And for the longest time, Microsoft had Age of Empires, but they didn't really have like a really good kicker. And so now this allows them to maybe bring back some StarCraft, some Warcraft, like traditional RTS kind of stuff. It's like, yes, if we can get that, great. Most certainly, we're going to get new Spyros. We're going to get a bunch of new games that are going to come out. Probably because they're going to immediately take a lot of those IPs that aren't doing anything, and they're immediately going to throw them to different studios and just say, start working on it.
Please, for the love of God, just
Yeah.
get Toys for Bob off of Call of Duty, for God's sake, and just let them work on Spyro 4, because I know for a God, I don't have any inside information, full disclosure, but I know for a goddamn... Oh, really? Okay, we're going to have to talk after this. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I'll say one thing for sure, and this is... If you know where to look and listen, there's going to be some pretty big cuts. There's going to be some pretty big trimming. We've seen this from a dozen other studios in the last couple of weeks. It's been like a fire sale everywhere. Everybody's got to go, and it's been really rough. It's been really insane for a lot of devs. There are a lot of companies that are cutting a ton of jobs right now, which is weird. But they're also hiring. So part of me thinks is that they're trying to shuffle people out, and I think 100% we're going to see some major cuts with ABK, depending on which of their studios. So we hope Toys for Bob don't get the axe. We hope that they get readjusted, that they get their own brand new separate studio to work on separate games, not part of a dumb shooter that those people, that's like secondary, third skills for, right? Like it's not what they created.
Don't
it's
do
like
with them.
It's like going to Picasso and asking him if he can, white paint your put the base paint layer in your office so that you can apply a white paint.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like why?
Or going to Rare and asking them to make Kinect games. Oh. Well, hopefully they learned from that mistake. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's over now. We can finally just move on to better things like Spider-Man coming out at the end of this week, which I hope to actually have some time to play. But your thoughts on the end of this whole saga, we'd love to hear them in the comment section below. Whether you think this is good, whether you think that this will ultimately end up and flaming tragedy. That's possible because we're dealing with big corporations here. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right. So I know nothing about Rocket League. I just know that my buddy Elliot really likes to play it, and it looks fun. I just never played it. But what's the deal with it? I didn't read.
So big news. Yeah. Big news out today. Rocket League has announced that they are no longer going to be allowing players to trade cars or gear or whatever they trade in the game.
Okay.
Used to be that you could trade it. Well, there's a website that that allows you to basically trade with other people, and it handles the trade kind of like more securely and really well. But because of this change to the core game, this has rendered the Rocket League trading site, 90% of it is now obsolete.
Right.
I believe it's called Rocket League Garage. But so yeah, this is just kind of a changing of the times, really. Like we've seen, like I just said, a lot of devs are being fired. But it's not just devs; it's the support sites for games. They just nuked this guy and his entire company that was doing very, very well, had a lot of people in it, and now he's 90% of his website is now obsolete. Nothing is going to be able to work there. At most, he might be able to twist it into like a news and update site for Rocket League in general, but it's done now. It is completely done. It's over with. It's essentially pointless, and this has put out a creative essentially out of work completely, right, and his entire company.
And what's the logic? Like I would hope that with doing something like that, which I would imagine would be such a boon to the community, that they wouldn't just do that and not leave any explanation, right?
Yeah. Well, and there was a lot of people who were saying that they felt that this was done by somebody who didn't really understand the game or the audience.
Uh-huh.
Which I have to say, I sort of agree. What people were trading were like, it's like these like icons or paints or stickers or whatever. And I guess somebody thought, hey, people are trading this stuff. You can go in and you can, within a couple of days of playing, you can get enough stuff that you can trade for things that you want. And that's it. But why do that when, why allow players to trade when you could say, hey, no trading allowed,
We just
and
got a bunch of
force
updates on
somebody
the
to,
fall.
if they want to unlock the cool pumpkin thing, well, they're just going to have to play for 4, maybe 5 years before they get lucky enough to get that one thing unlocked at a random chance.
Right.
That's as far as somebody explained it to me. It's like it's shocking, and it's like, wow, okay, this is really messed up. Now, again, I don't know all the ins and outs from it. I'm not saying that this is 100%. But Rocket League, it's kind of, it's a really great concept, and they've had a lot of really weird problems and difficulty in trying to kind of min-max and get their audience to grow, because, and I think this is a good point that some people said here, is that apparently people don't know what the players actually want, the devs. And this again is one of these scenarios where it's like, well, maybe this is why a lot of devs are getting fired right now, is because there's a general not understanding of what people want. And I mean, it's not just this, it's Baldur's Gate, it's all these other things that have come out where, players want one thing, and it turns out very quickly that the devs don't even understand what the players want and don't really know how to service it. And then they end up hurting other things around it. Anytime you have a website that tracks tens of thousands of users a month that are interacting with your game and then interacting with this site, when you cut that out, when you kill that, you really do damage the game. You're not actually helping or stabilizing your audience. You're just gutting a large portion of them. It's sort of like modding in a lot of ways. It's like if you kill off modding for some games, it's like you've killed the only audience that's there, repeatedly showing up to play the game, to play the content. So it was a bit of a weird story. It really made my jaw drop, because I was like, oh wow, that the turning off trading just killed another site, and potentially, and we'll see how this works, but I don't think that, I think trading is something that's always good in games, and you just have to build for the environment to make that work. Not that's what you have to do. You build for what people are doing with your game, not what you think or what you wish could be done with your game. It's like you have to understand and be aware of what's going on multiple perspectives. And I feel that this move was poor to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but and I guess I'm asking this question as the wrong person, because as I just said, I don't know anything about Rocket League. But what can you do with that game? Because really, all it is just a very complicated version of Pong, kinda, right? You have two people at the end of a giant arena with cars driving back and forth, pushing a giant ball into a hoop or into a net. What else can you do with that?
There's multiple teams. I mean, multiple players on each team.
Yes, that too. Sorry, I should have elaborated that. Yeah.
You get tons of customization with the vehicles, with flags, with emotes, stuff like that. And this is where some people don't understand. It's like, why are so many of these esports having issues right now? Why is the esport of World of Warcraft duels, why is it going down the crapper right now?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is that it's too complicated. It's way too complicated. Yes, that means that there's a higher skill ceiling, but trying to get a person who doesn't understand the game, or who has a very rudimentary understanding of the game, watching a paladin versus a warlock in a 1v1 1v1/3 team combo.
Yeah.
So it's like they duel each other one at a time until you kill all the members of one team. Just trying to watch that in an esports thing, it's not good. There's too much going on. You have no idea. You're looking at it. It's entirely like, it's like insanely hard to understand what's going on. The simpler the game, the better the esport potential is. Because when you look at Rocket League, almost everybody understands that relatively quickly. Because you're just trying to get the ball in the other net on the other side, and the cars have like jetpacks on them. That's like, as soon that, like, that's a simple concept. They got a booster. It's about positioning and that kind of stuff. And so it's very, you look at that, you look at soccer, you go, okay, I know what's going on. But in these games where, and again, it's like Overwatch when it first came out, was easier to watch, was easier to understand. As the years been, so many more champions, so many more heroes, so many more complexities added to the thing. Now nobody really understands what they're watching, because it's like, okay, what am I seeing here? Somebody used an ability that did something off screen that set something else up for another player who's not on camera right now.
Right.
And then they just killed everybody on the opposite team. What happened? I don't understand what happened. Oh wait,
they were playing as Doomfist.
They're all alive again. Is that a what? Why are they all alive again? Oh, now okay. The match is over. I don't really understand what was going on there. It's like, that's the kind of difficulty you have when you make complex stuff, which sucks, because there's a lot of players who they want that high end complexity. They want that depth of gameplay and that skill ceiling, and you don't always have that. You can't have that if you have just this very, very simplistic game.
Yeah.
I really want to make a game, and I think it would be great. I think it would be amazing. It would be a shooter game, but instead of shooting each other, you have to run up to each other and you immediately play 3 quick sudden death rounds of rock, paper, scissors. and that's the game. And there's like, it's just like Fortnite, where there's like 100 players dropped in on the map, and you just have to like rock, paper, scissors everybody as quickly as you possibly can, or you just die.
Right.
So
rock, paper, scissors battle royale.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors battle royale. Super easy. Everybody can see what's going on. They all understand what's happening. If you get less rock, paper, scissors, and it's a tie. So if you've battled 5 people and you've won against 5 people, and then you battle a dude who's only battled 3 people, and you go into a match and you get 3 ties in a row, you win, other guy loses. So that makes it so that everybody's like, they're running towards, to engage. They're not playing like chicken. They're not playing like, hide and don't. And that's a battle royale. And I mean, I think that's there's a world top ranked esports in that somewhere. But that's kind of like what Rocket League is. It's a very simplistic game that you get some customization, works really well, looks really good, looks smart. People can watch it. People can understand it. I think League of Legends and other MOBA games have suffered by becoming more complex, like way more complex. It was easier when it was far more simpler. And I mean, not saying that League of Legends is terrible, but and definitely has its own like niche esports drawing, and it kind of follows that. But yeah, I think overall it doesn't help when it's when there's just too much going on and you don't really understand what's happening on screen.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have that balance between skill and simplicity. I think that's why games like Team Fortress and Counter-Strike have maintained these high-level player counts over all these years. It's because they are so finely tuned, relatively easy to understand, but whether or not you can be the greatest that ever was, that's another issue. Plus, can you deal with all the bots? That's another question. But yeah, anybody listen to the show play Rocket League? Like, do you have any ideas as to what they could do to really take it to the next level? Or would they have to do a Rocket League 2? And what would that look like? Let us know in the comment section below. All right. This piece of news dropped today, man. Kind of shocking. Shocking, but maybe not necessarily surprising. Pete Hines, one of the two major heads over at Bethesda, is stepping down after 20 years. You're the Bethesda guy, Syb. Go ahead.
So I wasn't really shocked at this. Pete has been signaling that he's been wanting to retire.
Oh, really? Okay.
For a while. If you I follow him on Twitter and I react to a fair bit of his stuff, and he really has been trying to get closer to his kids, do more side projects, things that just signal that he's kind of done with the day-to-day of big company stuff. And I think that this is perfect timing. Starfield just came out. He's not going to have anything really heavy to do job-wise until their next game comes out in 4 years?
4 years. That's adorable.
4 years of sitting around doing basically nothing.
Right.
Not saying nothing, not saying that his job is nothing, but it's just not. The guy wanted. I got the very strong feeling that he's been wanting to retire for a while. He has made an awful lot of money. He made an enormous amount of money. He's doing just fine. There's no reason for him to break his back working on this kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, when you play a major role in the release of games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls and all that, you're gonna be just fine. Yeah, I suppose it was just shocking to me because unlike you, I don't really keep up with much of what he says. But now that you sort of put it that way, I suppose it does make most sense because Starfield, even though there are a lot of reasonable arguments against that game's formula, I think even with the people that offer up those complaints, those people still say it's a pretty good game overall. And what better time to go out than on a game that, a lot of people were having great expectations for, to sort of put Bethesda back in people's good graces, and it generally did that. So yeah, why not go out then instead of having to stay on for the next several years until Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and then retire? Why not just do it now? So yeah. That makes sense.
So I think now I think the rumor is he's 54 or 55. So that means that if he wants to do something before he retires, or if he wants to set up a retirement company before he retires, now is the time to do it. If you wait till you're 65, you're gonna have a lot of issues with that. Even now, wait until you're after 60. It's not that's where you set up oh yes, I'm gonna make a company that makes whiskey, right? It's not really.
Well, so you follow him, yeah. I understand that he wants to retire from that type of responsibility at Bethesda.
Yeah.
Does he seem like the type of guy that would want to go on and do something like that despite his retirement from Bethesda? Or
it depends. It depends. He used to DJ. He used to do a couple other things. So if he's got a penchant for wanting to work on something else, he's got more than enough money to retire at. I would say probably almost for certain. I know I'm positive he got a big buyout when Microsoft bought out Bethesda. Sure. And he's got no doubt he'll have a big bonus coming from the Starfield because it did sell very, very well. There are some complaints about Starfield, but overall, I'd say that the game is pretty darn good.
Yeah,
and that that I'm not going to really finish giving a positive review on it until
you're fully done.
Excuse me, I'm coughing so much it's so bad.
It's okay. Pray for Syb. #.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just Now, if he wants to set up a new company, get it running to the point where it can run after he semi-retires, after he's 65, then you'd want to do that now. You want to give yourself about a decade to get it up and rolling. If he's got an idea, if he has an offer on the table to be a little bit more in the creative side of things from another studio, could be that that's what's going on. We might hear him about a year from now going, "Hey, I'm joining such and such a company as a producer."
Sure.
Or a designer or a lead designer or something like that. It's...
And then spend the next decade on in a somewhat limited capacity, going to work every so often to participate in the really important stuff, and just so you have something to do while you're still hanging out with your family and stuff. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, Pete Hines is legendary, along with Todd. I'd love to see what he can do in maybe a less... what's the word I'm looking for? Less big capacity, not as big as Bethesda, but just something where maybe he has a little bit like a degree of control that he can bargain over.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah, I'm down with that. Well, thank you for 24 years of service, Mr. Hines. You and the people over at Bethesda are largely responsible for fostering my childhood and fostering my childhood well into my adult years. I for one, in fact, really enjoy Starfield. All right. Now, speaking of Bethesda, as I hit puberty again, let's talk about Fallout for a second, just to conclude the show. Syb, the stuff that you sent me in that Juicehead video, wasn't that leaked? Like the footage? So, in case you guys don't know, there's a Fallout TV show coming out next year on Amazon Prime. And there has been some leaked footage. It looks really good, and we're going to talk about it. But I'm pretty sure I saw it before. Or was there something else that came out this past week that I don't know about?
No, there's been a couple more leaks. So obviously we're not gonna showcase the leaks. We're not gonna, because we can't. Neither was he or some of these other channels.
Right.
Obviously,
TLDR.
Showing.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. The TLDR is that we're getting the show sooner. Like it's coming in 2024, and it's looking really good. Mm-hmm. Like I've taken a peek at pretty much everything that's come out, because I'm trying to, like, I know I'm going to be spoiled on it probably in depth, but just overall I am really honestly quite excited about where this is going. It looks honestly so good. Everything about it looks really good. I'm not going to promise the moon, because that just it hasn't been working towards our advantage at all. But I will say that the show looks great. The animation looks good. The suits look amazing. The weapons, the iconic stuff, everything is looking really, really good. Do I think it's going to be the perfect show?
Hard to say.
Right.
Sorry, can we talk about some of the stuff that was in that, what we saw?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Dude, those Brotherhood of Steel costumes, holy crap, those look cool.
Yeah, so there was, there was, and this has been around for a while. We've seen them for quite a while. Some of the footage that have came out, some of even the rap party stuff that wasn't even under NDA, which just came out. We saw the armor. We saw that it looked, and this is where I always say, it's like it looked better than some of the best cosplay we've seen.
Yeah,
which is like about time, right? Because how many times are we looking forward to a TV show based off of something that we like, and somebody brings it out and it's absolutely just like, it's like, your average, not the top 10, not the people who get up and win the awards, but your like average, like, super fan going to a convention puts in more time and effort into their costume than this, than this big Hollywood studio type thing. It's like, why?
Right. But
yeah,
man, I like, what was I just about to say? Oh yeah, like you're so right, Si. Like the amount of, just from like the 480p footage that somebody recorded from their phone, you could
Mhm.
tell just how much effort went into the set design and the costume design. And, one, like, aside from obviously the story, which is my biggest concern with any adaptation from a video game, the one thing that I was really concerned about in regards to a Fallout TV show adaptation is whether or not they were going to make the Fallout aesthetic not come across as cartoony in a live action setting. Because when I play the games, it's sort of a part of the game's charm. It's this contrast between this horrible post-apocalyptic world and this constant like trying to sanitize it by trying to reintroduce civilization back into it in a way, along with this quasi 50s aesthetic on top of it that they're trying to force in, and how those two things sort of intermingle. It comes across in the games as cartoony, at least for me. But with what we saw in that leaked footage, it really looks like they nailed it.
Yeah.
Like,
And
God.
the thing that there's been some rumors going around about that really caught my eye on this one, is that they've resumed some filming,
Yeah.
which is like
Normal.
interesting because they did finish all of the filming. So the
Well,
question is,
mhm.
did they are they going back to get some additional filming stuff because they realize they need a couple more scenes, or have they already started some of the the groundwork for getting into the second season?
I would say probably the former. If I were to put my money on anything, because when it comes to big budget productions, be it for TV or movie, they have to they pre-plan everything just because they're so expensive that they want to make sure that they try to conserve as much money as they can, and they will pre-plan reshoots or additional footage into their schedule. So
Mm-hmm.
no doubt that that's what that is. I would be really surprised if they have that much confidence in the show that they were willing to go into production right away without having released the show first. Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
it
yeah,
could also be that it's not, and they're not filming for second season, but maybe they're filming for a bunch of extra bits, or they're filming for some additional
true.
outside content for stuff outside of the actual season. And what we're getting is some filming for other things, like, and there's no telling what that could be, right?
Right.
That could be everything from some interesting on set, like post show, kind of like, here's what we did, here's how we did it, that kind of stuff. Or it might be something as cool as just a director walking around talking about stuff, being, normally what you call DVD extras, right?
Mm.
Stuff like that. It's probably just going back and getting some extra footage for stuff. But it seems like they're really happy with this. So we'll see with how it does once the show drops. Obviously, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that it does really, really well, because I'd love a bunch of seasons of this.
Sure.
I just was watching Lower Decks season 4, and I gotta say, when that show first started, I was kind of like, but fourth season, they've gotten into their groove. They have found the funniest thing to do is to just play off of like all of the stupid funny stuff that they could play off of within the actual Star Trek universe, to kind of like point fingers and laugh at the things that we would normally laugh about. They just did a big Voyager episode where it had all of the, they all referred to it constantly. They're like, we're on Voyager, man. Everything's crazy here. Nothing makes sense. There's people becoming lizards, and they're mocking all this cool stuff. There was just it had me laughing out loud. And I think that in order for shows to get good, you really need it to get into the fourth season. That's when you know whether the show is good or not. The first 2 seasons are really, really rough, usually, because they're trying to figure things out, and you don't always get the Invincibles or the Arcanes. Those are very much like out of the standard system of how TV works. Normally, you get the show, you start it up, it starts to work. I had somebody tell me that I watched a little bit of the first season of this show called Outpost, It's really tiny. But apparently all the actors just like are putting their heart and soul into it, and like the later seasons of it are really, really good. And so it's like stuff like that is like, okay, well, that's probably what's going on. And what I hope we get in Fallout is that we get a show 3 seasons on that just really comes into its own, and it's just this it's just a great thing to sit down every year and watch.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping for that, because the first 2 seasons of both Voyager and DS9 were terrible. But good lord, I think some of the best TV ever was in the latter seasons of Deep Space Nine, and there were some really good ones at the latter end of the Voyager series too, and stuff that I really don't think, like, I really do think is like I think the best TV episode I've ever seen, not counting like anime, so just kind of keeping it kind of narrow to like general sci-fi. I think one of the best episodes was In the Pale Moonlight. It's like it's hands down one of the best episodes ever, and you wouldn't get that unless they stuck it out.
Right. Can I just, sorry, indulge me, guys, are listening to this. I just need to ask Side something very quickly. I know that you listen. I know that you have watched a lot of sci-fi television. I gotta ask you, have you ever watched Farscape?
Yeah, I watched pretty much all of Farscape.
Okay. I just started watching that recently with my wife, and we just got through the first season. Do you recall if that same principle that you're talking about actually holds for that show, and that it gets better as it goes along? Because the first...
I'd say...
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
Good. Okay.
I know of very few sci-fi shows that got worse the later... Like, the further that you went.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, Andromeda. The really good. There was 2. The Dark Matter, and then the other one that I can't remember. It's like they got better, and you could tell that they were really ramping up. But Dark Matter got killed before it could really like take off. First season was like really hokey. Second season was really promising, really started to build, but then they were like, kill the show off because so stuff like that. It's like that's what sucks about it, and that's why I'm excited for things like Andor. It's like we're gonna get a better season the later that show goes on. Unfortunately, we kind of know where that ends unless they pull off some Sith veils.
Right.
Well, no, it's they're so this is I'm hearing that this is how they're gonna like retcon a whole bunch of stuff in the Star Wars official lore. Is that it's called Dark Side Veils or something like that, where it's like what you're seeing happening sometimes is happening in a bubble, and that's not actually what happened. That's the dark side trying to like twist things, and what's actually going on is different than what's being seen. I trust me. I was at first I was like, that seems like a really bad cop out. But then I realized, oh wait, that could mean that they could get rid of that whole storyline that they did with the last 3 movies.
Right. Well, look,
that would work. I'd be okay with that.
I'm all for it in principle, but if that's the way that they're going to go about trying to explain things, that's fucking... Excuse my language. I'm sorry. That is stupid. I'm sorry. Just call it a multiverse. Like, I'm sorry. That just like levels of stupid akin to like, oh yeah, Sidious is back because of we did some occult rituals and crap. Yeah, no, but man, given the state that Star Wars is in right now, we might just have to bite the bullet and let them do that if it means that we could just reset things.
Yeah. So it's I think that just all sci-fi needs time, because sci-fi is one of those things that, and this really is, it's a super huge part of media. It's telling a story about what you think would happen in the future. That's actually so important to human society. It's really, really is important to growth and to development, because what you're asking yourself to look forward, and then to tell yourself stories based off of things that you think might happen, or things that you hope happen. on one side kind of being a bad thing and the other side being a good thing. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking at, and I think like we really need these shows to like stick around for a while, get to know what's going on. That's why I really hate when they cast big name actors in shows. Like I really dislike that. I think that's one of the worst things that you could possibly do for sci-fi is cast a really big star in it who is not going to be there in 3 years. Like they're going to have way more other things to do, or the show is constantly getting delayed because of their schedule and conflicts and all that kind of stuff. It's like, nah, don't do that. Just hire a bunch of like really good unknown actors, make a product, stick with it.
Yeah.
That's when you get things like Star Trek or Stargate, sorry. That's where you get Stargate, Star Trek Next Generation. You get all those good stuff because you have these actors come in and you really have time to flush out all of their characters and make it good.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. And let's hope that carries over to Fallout, because man, like Fallout in a TV setting could be prime for some really, really damn good storytelling. And we've already gotten that in terms of the games, but in the realm of TV, you could really flesh out meaningful stories and meaningful characters like a Joshua Graham, like a Randall Clark, like a Mr. House. I know I'm quoting exclusively from New Vegas, but there's a reason. But yeah, even beyond that, like going back to the old school Fallout 1 and 2 days when they were... Chris Avallone wrote those?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. So, cool. Well, coming next year, guys, one major thing to look forward to. All right. That does it for this episode of Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your patience in us not being here last week. But we are back on a regular schedule. Make sure you hit that like button if you like this episode. It helps out the channel, this video, and all other videos on our channel a whole lot. Plus, it's free and easy to do. I want to thank Syb as always. Syb, I'm glad that you're feeling better, man. Anything you want to plug that we should plug before we finish the show?
Nothing in particular. I'm so annoyed. I'm so frustrated. We've had so Mooney has been sick. I've been sick, and just back and forth, and it's been absolutely hell trying to get out some of these bigger projects that we've been wanting to get out, and it's so very frustrating. And every time I promise, like, hey, we've got some cool stuff working on it, which we are. Unfortunately, it's still in the pipeline because we just haven't the universe has not been on our backside. So we thank you for sticking it out. Always appreciate the listens and the feedback. We love you guys.
Yeah. And the same goes to people that are waiting for me to do certain things on my channel. And speaking of my channel, if you want to check out the work that I do on my personal channel, I'm just at Max Derrat on YouTube. My name is in the description box below in case you don't know how to spell it. I got a video that I just released today. It's on an old PS2 horror game called Haunting Ground that was back before Capcom didn't just focus on Resident Evil as their main horror franchise. Really damn good game. I really enjoyed it. Make sure you go check that out along with all the other wonderful videos that I have on my channel. And also check out Scenometry. That's Ash's Futurama project that is doing really, really well. I'll put links to all that stuff in the description box below. That does it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us. And until we do this again next week, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, pray that a Silent Hill transmission happens this week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.